Well, good morning, sales team optimization pundits. Welcome back to www.salessystem.com.au. And my name is Glenn Guilfoyle, and I head up the sales team optimization specialist group called The Next Level. And welcome back again to this installment in our monthly series on topics surrounding the concept, in fact, the imperative of sales team optimization for us in business to business corporate sales organizations. And we exist in the passionate belief that those organizations that disrupt their sales go-to-market strategy and run their optimization accordingly as an integral part of their whole of company annual sales budgeting will be the ones that survive and thrive in the new world order and become the beacons that shine the light on all of us to know what it really means to be B4B in the eyes of the customer, where the sales execs of that company are considered as much a part of the organisation in customer land, even more so than the organisation that actually employs them and pays their salary. And this series is designed to give you tidbits of interest to actually build your model in that direction. So last month I looked at a kind of a definition on sales team optimization, and also how that definition differentiates the concept of sales team optimization from sales force effectiveness. And today I'm actually going to have a look at why is this important. Why are the elements and aspects of sales team optimization so important in this difficult environment that many of us in mature B2B markets in corporate Australia find ourselves in? So here we go. It's tough out there. You don't need me to tell you that. It's really tough. We've all seen over the last 10 to 15 years the rise of internet as a powerful tool for customers to do their own research, to do their own homework, to do their own even buying. It's fundamentally changed the way the buyers are more educated now, which in turn takes away one of the key raison d'etre we have as a sales exec in a sales organisation. The GFC, you know, it's quite a long time now since Lehman Brothers collapsed, but the ramifications are still with us across the whole world, and I believe that it has actually taught organisations to conduct their business differently, to get better at doing more with less, which in turn has a negative impact on us in the B2B sales world. Globalization, whether we are directly competing against an international organization or not, the effects are there, either direct or indirect, in terms of increased competition, further increase on price, and it again creates another negative and downward pressure on the effectiveness of the sales organization. And that in turn, along with other causes, brings to light the notion of commoditization. You only have to look at the car industry. You think about the leading car, the top end range German car, the lower end range Asian car sort of 30, 40 years ago, and the functionality, the comfort, the style, everything about the whole value package was quite different. And we've seen over the years a narrowing of the gap between the top end and the lower end range in the car industry. And I think if you really think hard, the same kind of narrowing of the product and service gap, the commoditization, plays out in many, many industries, and again creates further downward pressure on the relevance and the cost effectiveness of a sales organization selling these products or services. Every year in Australia, Barrett Consulting Group conduct research on the sorts of things that keep heads of sales, general managers, CEOs awake at night, and they publish their so-called 12 trends for sales organisations. And I believe that the research that was conducted a little bit more than a year ago now, in early 2014, or at least published at that time, really puts the spotlight on my point of the relevance of sales team optimization for the sales organization against the backdrop of what I've been talking about, and certainly what comes out of their research. And the first major trend that they speak of is in fact that organizations will actually look to drive costs out of sales. So growing the business will still be the main driver, the main purpose, but driving that business whilst at the same time reducing and cutting costs out of sales will create a negative tension, a dichotomy of sorts for the sales organization. We also, that trend that they speak of also alludes to increased focus on redefining sales territories, a greater alignment of cost-effective resource for the lower end customers when the customer base is ranked from top to bottom from a contribution in revenue or margin perspective, and a shift in focus from volume to volume and value. The trends go on. They speak about telesales having to make dramatic changes. Telesales will need to sell more complex solutions to more knowledgeable customers. They'll become a vital part of the overall strategic sales operation. The role of sales excellence managers or sales force effectiveness managers will find a real a shift or a redefinition of their roles, incorporating sales excellence back into the sales management and either reverting to their original role or being redeployed elsewhere in the sales operation chain. Another trend that their research speaks about is that sales training methodologies are going to change. Salespeople will need more training but have less time to be trained. There will be a reduced trend on training or a reduced spend against, again, another dichotomy against an increased need and requirement for such training. And they also predicted in the research an increase in e-learning and in-field coaching. The move to micro sales management. The research suggests that relying on the broad brush of marketing segmentation will no longer cut the mustard. Segments will need to be further sub-segmented. Defining the most attractive segments and customers within will become the function of strategic sales, not just marketing. And they warn us that getting it wrong can cost big time. The trends also go on to describe the low carbon economy and the opportunities within, normalizing of social media as just a normal integral part of the marketing mix, the learning required and the opportunities of dealing in the Asian economy, or Asian century as they call it. And they also speak about the increasing rise of the role of the procurement specialist in the organisation for the sales organisation, and that role moving from a really lowest cost, cheapest price type differentiation and selection role to a role that actually works with suppliers to actually identify and create partnerships based on value creation between the two parties. And on we go. Legitimisation of sales strategy. So out from under the shadow, the research predicts that the sales function will take on a more strategic role in the sales organisation in terms of the delivery of value and growth. Strategic sales will be studied by other functions, other heads of departments within the organisation beyond just heads of sales. And in fact, they predict that head of sales, strategic sales, will find a seat at the C table within the sales organisation. A radical shift in sales mindset, another trend, from a competitive to a collaborative mindset, from me to we, which really means everyone in the organisation connecting with the customer and playing a contributory role to an integrated sales approach. The enlightened salesperson. The research predicts that the winning sales exec and the winning sales teams will take on a more enlightened and collaborative approach with in-depth knowledge. They'll become experts, as knowledgeable as their customers in themselves in terms of the industry markets that the customers exist within. And so, from our perspective at the next level, our window to the same sort of world, B2B sales organisation, particularly the more mature industries, we actually pick up on another trend that Barrett Consulting Group speak of in their 2015 research, and it's this horrible race to the bottom. This is the notion that those elements of the GFC, the impact of the GFC, globalization, commoditization, and other negative forces are creating behaviors and a mindset whereby price is being whittled down by competitive players in order to hold volume and hold market share. It's a game that no one really wins, and it's a horrible race to the bottom. We're seeing at the next level the rise of e-commerce and the educated customer, as I alluded to before. We're also seeing trends to market consolidation and centralisation. And we see that particularly with industry scenarios featuring multi-branch, multi-retail outlet, any form of multi-site, where larger organisations are acquiring and mopping up smaller organisations, creating this consolidation of industries where the big get bigger and the small get mopped up, which in turn often creates a centralisation effect where the mothership, the head office that's controlling all the sites, actually makes supply decisions on their behalf, which in turn again takes another value add, another role of the sales exec that used to play that role with the customer at the local level. There's always been difficulty for sales organisations in assessing the accountability, measurability, productivity of sales teams, and we think in this current environment that that's becoming even more so. So overall, there is this increasing pressure on justification of headcount and the cost to mobilise the B2B sales team, which again, back to my overarching point, is increasing the focus and the need for a sales team optimisation approach. In turn, many sales organisations, we believe and we're seeing, will respond to these sorts of pressures by unfortunately continuing to reduce price and margin, fighting the race to the bottom. That in turn will cause them to reduce sales, headcount, and even service levels to try to protect their margin. Some will react by executing more sales training or even restructuring the sales team, shifting the deck chairs around. Some will blame individuals in the sales organisation or even the sales organisation, sales team as a whole. And we believe that also many organisations will respond by increasing their micromanagement and reporting of the sale demands of the sales execs in the sales team. Sadly, many organisations will be running their sales team at less than half potential productivity and not even realise it. And most organisations will not realise that the sales team is in fact the key to creating value and differentiation. In fact, the sales team ought to be re-engineered, retrained and restructured to create the beacon out of the mire of selling in the race to the bottom based on the products and services and the prices and margins associated. More sales or product training is in fact the last thing that sales teams need. Most sales organisations also will not realise that in fact the root cause of the lack of productivity and return is less about the inadequacies of the individuals or the sales team as a whole, but in fact the environment in which the organisation entrusts them and entrusts them to actually deliver on sales targets. The sales exec primary role is to challenge and teach, and most organisations will not realise this as an imperative before they even attempt to provide a solution to the customer's needs and problems. And finally, and this brings me back full circle to where I start, most organisations will not realise that they should be running their sales team optimisation as an integral part of their whole of company annual sales budgeting process. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's made you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but importantly has given you some really good food for thought. And don't forget, we're always just a phone call away to discuss any of these points or any others in assisting you help your sales team organisation to the next level.